The African Center for Energy Policy and OXFAM have launched a campaign to ensure that adequate resources were allocated to the agriculture and education sectors to propel the country's growth. Dubbed Promoting Sustained Funding for Agriculture and Education in Ghana, the campaign seeks to drum home the need for more of the oil fund to be infused in agriculture and education development, in particular to enable the country cut down on importation. Ghana passed the Petroleum Management Act 2011, Act 815, to provide a framework to manage petroleum revenues after commercial production began in 2010. The Act prescribed allocation of a portion of petroleum revenue to budgetary support through the annual budget funding amount. The African Union, recognizing the importance of agriculture sector to the economic development of its member states, committed to sustaining its growth and development through the Maputo Declaration in 2003. However, government expenditure to agriculture and education based on data under the classification of functions of government from the Controller and Accountant General's departments showed that Ghana had not been able to meet the agriculture expenditure targets as outlined by the Comprehensive African Agriculture Development Program. Planting for Food and Jobs is a flagship agriculture campaign of the government aimed to promote food security and immediate availability of selected food crops on the market and also provide jobs.
Release of funds is a big challenge to us. And then for the GOG counterpart, it's very small. Maybe you send a program and then the funding that will come will be about 30% of the funding. But for the foreign donor funding, they will give you what you send your this thing for. But the GOG funding is limited and it will not even come early. As I'm talking to you, nothing have come in. But we are supposed to start working. If the Canadian government will continue to fund agriculture, then we won't have problem. But the funding is ending next year. So we don't know whether when it ends, what will happen. Are we going to get enough funds to continue the program, or the program will go back, or any other donor funding will come on source?
The Planting for Food and Job is to modernize the agriculture sector of the economy in order to improve food security, create employment opportunities, and reduce poverty.
So you're a farmer. So we're from here, Kituakra, once you cried, come among. Yanya for Subi, but what we say, all my seedlings, fertilizers, and other items. Planting food are buying. But the beer age, so I can say. As I said, this time we got fertilizer. I say, "Oma, planting food, nyamane ni hobi, na high."
Its implementation approach aimed to motivate farmers to use input and output markets and create employment opportunities along the commodity value chains with motivating tool which focuses on providing 50% subsidy of the cost of inputs and complementary services such as extension services and marketing of outputs.
I know there are a lot of activities going on with the program, but personally with my team and myself, we've not benefited from the flagship program. So I've gotten all my seed myself, even not government subsidy. I pay my workers, I do my own irrigation on my own and all that. So I always ask myself, where is this program? The government needs to work closely with the cooperative and the farmers on the ground, and then they should supply us with the input and give us working capital to be able to plant more and get enough for the market to feed our people, because there is shortage of food, especially maize and vegetables.
This declaration also requires governments to allocate at least 4 to 6% of gross domestic products and or 15 to 20% of total public expenditure to education. For over a decade, government expenditure in education has surpassed the ancient declaration benchmark of at least 15% of total expenditure. Education received much attention from the annual budget funding amount allocation than agriculture sector. On the average, education had received about 90% of its planned ABFA expenditure between 2017 and 2019 compared to 33% for agriculture within the same period.
The policy is good to the extent that it provides for people who are unable to access senior high school education, whether or not they can pay. It is a good thing. Even though it comes with some few challenges because of the burden on government. It may have to affect other sectors of the economy. But that notwithstanding, as far as the policy is concerned, it's a very, very good policy.
Currently, the government pays for everything, including their practicals and everything. So it has virtually relieved parents of the burden of paying, and also giving the child the opportunity to have that free mind to study.
So far, government has spent 7.7 billion Ghana cedis in implementing the flagship policy since its rollout, which had benefited more than 1.2 million students at the secondary education level. An amount of 480 million Ghana cedis was spent on the policy in 2017, 1.3 billion Ghana cedis in 2018, 1.6 billion Ghana cedis in 2019, 2.4 billion Ghana cedis in 2020, while 1.9 billion Ghana cedis would be spent this year.
I would like to see a deliberate provision targeted at children with disability in the schools.
Though it has reduced the burden of the heads chasing students and not, some of them losing classes and all that. On the flip side, when there are delays, then it causes a lot of problem. So all we pray for, as I said, will be the government bringing the monies to early enough.
As of March 2020, there were nearly 405,000 second cycle students enrolled under the free senior high school policy, as against 512,083 applicants at the same date. This policy was launched by the government of Ghana in September 2017 to provide free and accessible education to people at this educational level. Enrollment in secondary schools increased significantly since the institution of this educational policy.
SHS, if admission, 20 million, 50 million in Yamanama. Na asa Juma Miyanu, Satam, me to me as Askanu, and Coco to admission, and Sana Boost ni provisions near Manama Babim. Na Abai Aji Kakrafa, now say the I can miss me for me Penusa, and Yama benefiting.
At the time when free SHS started, I was in Form 3, so I didn't benefit, but hopefully my sister will benefit.
Daddy has to buy practical items for me, and then if it were to be back then, he would have been paying school fees and be buying practical items at the same time. But due to free SHS, the government is paying my fees, and then my daddy is also taking care of the practical aspect, so it has been good to me.
Through the free SHS, the government is paying our school fees, and our parents are able to save the money they would have used to pay our school fees to cater for other things. So right now, I think the free SHS is really helping us.
Everything is being provided by the government, so we don't pay anything. Yeah, I'm really benefiting from the free SHS.
Unfortunately, there are no specific provisions in the free SHS policy intervention to support visually impaired students beyond benefits received by the other students. The free senior high school program comes with supply of free exercise and textbooks to sighted students. However, visually impaired students are left to their fate.
There aren't specific provisions for the visually impaired students. When you give hard copy printed materials to a Braille user, it's difficult. The department has to go through a lot to translate that to a format that they'll be able to access. And since government is the one doing it, one would have thought that they'll provide born accessible materials for their use as well, large print, Braille, audio, e-text, things like that, so so that we do not have to go through a lot of difficulty trying to make that accessible to them.
This sad reality of inequality defeats the purpose of inclusive education captured in the Sustainable Development Goal 4, which also emphasizes on equality and equity.
We, the disabled ones in the school, part of the free SHS policy, don't benefit of that just because these books comes along in a print copy, of which we, the disabled ones, don't get access to read just because we can't read the print copies. And even the low visions among us, like me, can't access that book because our accessibility to textbooks are either in an audio form, a braille form, or a large print form.
A town hall meeting held by ACEP and OXFAM in the northern and southern zones focused on deliberating on the challenges confronting the education and agriculture sectors and the need for increased public spending to address those challenges and develop the sectors. In light of these findings, ACEP and OXFAM recommend that petroleum revenue allocation should not be a substitute for existing government expenditure in the agriculture and education sectors. Rather, revenue allocations should lead to a substantial increase in a total government expenditure and investment in education and agriculture to address the challenges of the sector. Otherwise, the periodization of the sectors will not achieve the objective of the PRMA. The government must ensure that planted ABFA allocation to the agriculture and education sectors are fully disbursed. Also, investment in the agriculture and education sectors should be deliberate and targeted towards crucial areas necessary for growth of the sectors.